For our final presentation, I am pleased to announce that Justin Bush from the Washington Invasive Species Council is here, and he is going to be speaking to us. So take it away, Justin.
Great, so I'm just trying to get the PowerPoint going here. Can you confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yes. Yes, it's in edit mode.
In edit mode?
Oh, maybe it's loading.
Of course, I think I'm sharing the wrong thing. Stand by, folks. Sorry about that.
There you go.
What do you see now?
Oh, now I see your speaker notes. You had it just a second ago. There, perfect.
Okay. So yeah, I'd really like to thank Aaron and Randy for switching with me at the last minute. I thought that that introduction to the tool of Incident Command System was a great primer to kind of building on that, showing applying it to invasive species, and then also introducing another tool that might benefit your work, which is this concept of the whole community approach. So with this, I'm going to be sharing a successful approach for preparation, response, and recovery with a lens toward applying these concepts to invasive species. And in doing so, I'll be showing a case study of how we applied this to an invasive mussel exercise held at Lake Roosevelt in 2019. So I come from the invasive species world first, and I know what a lot of you are probably thinking, and I think that that's how does emergency management work, and how does this fit into noxious weeds and invasive species? And I think that Aaron and Randy did a great job explaining how that fits, but as a state and as a nation, we've committed to the incident command system. It's used in responding to emergencies such as wildfires, cyber attacks, pandemics, and all types of incidents. And invasive species, certainly new invasive species, are an emergency, and we will be responding to it as such. And the Washington Invasive Species Council is promoting that everyone that has a role in preventing and stopping invasive species becoming somewhat familiar with this system, because it will be used in certain instances, and we want to make sure that all types of invasive species responders have that common understanding of where they plug in, those terms, kind of how the structure is working. And we know that everybody has a role to play with stopping invasive species and being successful, but beyond that, this structure starts to broach the topics of how response should be organized. So is weed and invasive species managers, we know that success in our mission requires everyone to pull together. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel in terms of our approach to engaging the public, industry, leaders and decision makers and other officials, and lessons learned from what worked, what didn't, and templates for success were analyzed across the nation. And this is summarized in a really great document that's produced by the FEMA. And in this approach is commonly referred to as whole community. And really, I'm trying to make the case that this can be applied to our work and what we're trying to do as well. So for the purpose of this case study illustrating this approach and why I feel that it should be explored and maybe be applied in certain instances, today I'm focusing on invasive freshwater mussels. And in brief, invasive freshwater mussels were first introduced to the Great Lakes in the 1980s. They've since been spreading by hitchhiking on aquatic conveyances, such as recreational watercraft, docks, and anything that's moving that has been infested. So as Dr. Clinton Campbell pointed out, anything that moves can move invasive species, and anything that has been in infested waters maybe potentially could be transporting that as an infected conveyance. So invasive mussels attach to hard surfaces. Oftentimes one generation grows on top of the other, and that pipe that you see there eventually would close like an artery. And this would be a huge problem for Washington State. The risk that mussels pose Our agricultural systems and our hydroelectric facilities is something that we've analyzed, and we know that it will cost us at least $100 million annually just to keep those systems running. That astronomical number doesn't include impacts to recreation, impacts to access, impacts to drinking water systems, or wildlife or other ecological services. So that we know the number will actually be far higher than 100 million per year. The quagga and the zebra mussel are related. They cause us the same problems. They're prevented or controlled in similar ways. And so oftentimes we lump them together in how we speak about them just to avoid any confusion. Oftentimes you'll hear the term invasive mussels or lumping them together saying quagga and zebra mussels. However, there are some differences, as you can see here in the illustration. The quagga mussel has a rounded angle between the ventral and the dorsal surfaces. The quagga also has a convex ventral side that can be distinguished by placing the shells on their ventral side. And so the quagga mussel, if you place it on its side, will topple over, whereas the zebra mussel often will not. I tried to break a mussel shell out of there to show you, but it didn't work very well. They usually have concentric rings on their shells, and that are the growth rings. And I guess really from my perspective and for everyone in Washington, it's important to note that Washington doesn't have any native mussels with byssal threads, which is how they attach to substrates or hard surfaces. And each individual can look a little different. And so regardless of the coloration, what would say is any mussel that is attached to a hard surface that you're finding, you should report. So remember, see something, say something. And I lost my, what do you see on the screen, folks?
I see like the PowerPoint up in like, not in presenter mode, just like in edit mode.
Yeah, my screen was just flashing like crazy. What do you see now?
You. Oh, there we go. It's still at the edit mode though. Oh, now we're back.
It's Friday. We're all tired of this at this point. So I think we covered how to identify this pest species sufficiently. And the gist of it is, if you see something, say something. Never be afraid to report something that might not be accurate. If it is accurate, you may save us millions of dollars annually. If it's not, would love to tell you something about our native mussels. So in the case of quagga and zebra mussels, we know that they're classified as prohibited level 1 aquatic invasive species by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. That's a state department. This is important because if they are found in Washington, certain authorities come into play. That's the highest priority for aquatic invasive species. And as you can see, some of that mentions the incident command system. And why does it do that? Because emergency management has shown itself and been proven to be successful in managing other types of incidents, and we'd like to also be effective in stopping invasive species. So with that, one element of incident command system is this whole community approach. Within the whole community approach, there are 3 principles I'll try to illustrate using the case study, the mussel exercise. So the first is community understanding and meeting the needs of the whole community. And so community engagement can lead to a deeper understanding of the needs of the community. You'll understand its values, its community structure, its networks and relationships, what is valued and how to interact with it, I guess I would say. And the better that we understand these communities, the better we can understand their needs and their motivations for participating in emergency response or invasive species response in this context. In the case of invasive mussels, through seeing the impacts to other states and provinces, we know what it would mean to the state. And we've clearly heard from the public, from industry, from user groups such as recreational boaters and irrigators, that quagga and zebra mussels would significantly impact their sectors and change their business. And through studies and support for prevention activities such as watercraft inspection stations, the state has responded to the needs of that community. And in 2019, the Department of Fish and Wildlife that operates our border inspection stations at Spokane and Plymouth were able to inspect more than 32,000 watercraft. And this was pretty neat because it was a 31% increase from 2018. And about 1/3 of those watercraft actually came from infested states. And they detected 18 vessels that carried invasive mussels on them, and 1,200 that actually failed to meet clean, drain, dry requirements. So not only are those stations preventing aquatic invasive animals like mussels, but they're also looking for aquatic vegetation like aquatic noxious weeds, which also cannot be transported. So little known fact, and they're helping the weed folks. So that our strategy, first and foremost, is prevention so that we don't impact the community. But when that fails and there's a detection of invasive mussels, swift action is required to initiate control actions and do containment. And as a state, we've exercised our response plan 3 times in tabletop exercises. And anyone that's done field work knows that it's pretty easy to say something, but doing it is actually sometimes exponentially more difficult. And so this is especially true if actions are being taken by responders that are not trained and not practiced in what they're being asked to do. And so given the opportunity by the U.S. Department of Interior Bureau of Reclamation, we suggested that we would like to hold an operations-focused exercise to test the field components of response. So that leads us to the second principle, which is engaging and empowering all parts of the community. Engaging the whole community, empowering local action, better positions us to plan for as well as meet the actual needs of the community. It will strengthen local capacity of responders and other stakeholders, as well as positioning everyone to best deal with the consequence of whatever threat is in place. And this group should really be inclusive and should include all members of the community in the incident management, the emergency response team, whether that is government agencies, tribal nations, industry, researchers, nonprofits, really any user group or organization that has a nexus to response should be involved. And that's how we're going to be successful. No one organization can do this on their own. And in the case of the invasive mussel exercise, we selected Lake Roosevelt for the location. And this group that came together to form the Unified Command and the planning team included the Confederated Tribes of the Caldwell Reservation, the Spokane Tribe of Indians, the U.S. National Park Service, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, in addition to state agencies. And as a unified command, all parts of that community came together for that one purpose of responding to a mock detection of invasive mussels. It's also important to point out that we engaged private industry, we worked with nonprofits, local government organizations, provincial organizations, as well as decision makers such as legislators and staff of congressional delegates. So in all of this, that we can't do it alone, and we need to be successful in engaging the whole community. And in this case, we did, and we couldn't have achieved our goals otherwise. So the operations-based exercise took place in October of 2019, and it simulated every on-the-ground activity that we envisioned within a 1-day period. And this wasn't actually probably going to occur in 1 day in reality, but so we had staggered timelines and different incident action plans depending on what elements of the team were being used. So we wanted to do everything on the ground in 1 day. That wouldn't really happen in reality, but we wanted to do that for the purpose of training. And also you can see that it's kind of a misnomer to say it was a one-day event, because we took about the better part of a year to build up to it. And that included multiple workshops, planning and identifying needs of responders, as well as holding trainings and drills, such as incident command system trainings in person as well as online. And then also getting out and testing some of the activities in the field that before they were used in the purpose of the exercise. That also included permit acquisition, resource procurement, and a functional workshop, which is one form of a tabletop exercise. So there's a lot to build up to this in order to do it safely, I guess is my point. But the main takeaway that I'm sharing is that we were successful because we employed a whole community approach to invasive species. And what we're saying is that you can be too. We can stop invasive species when they become introduced to our communities. However, there may be training, planning, drills, or exercises that should be considered before there's an actual problem. And the Washington Invasive Species Council strategy is actually pretty well in line with the themes of the whole community. And so really would suggest that each of you review both and think about how they could be applied to your programs. And I mentioned that the invasive mussel exercise brought together a vast group of responders. It actually brought together 59 responders from 15 organizations in 2 countries to test containment, perform a mock treatment, inspect and decontaminate watercraft. There were monitoring performed by skilled divers, dogs, as well as scientists. And on their own, none of these activities are really that difficult, but doing them all in the same place at one time in a coordinated, safe, and efficient way is very difficult. And that's really where the incident command system proved itself. So just showing some of the different activities. In reality, the launch and the water body were actually still open to the public. That would have been a little more contained had this been a real incident. And this gave us a really great opportunity to engage the public and have some great dialogue about the risk of invasive mussels and what response would look like. And it was a tremendous opportunity to engage the public and do outreach. This also included the opportunity to cross-training between agencies. So state agency responders were able to work alongside federal and tribal partners. And within the scenario, this simulated removing infected watercraft from the water body and then decontaminating them.
Justin, you've got 3 minutes.
Perfect. I'll move quickly. So we also had trained canine units, one from Alberta as well as the state of Washington's detection dog. What's notable about this is that the dogs were 100% effective in finding the mussels that had been placed. So a great tool that we're promoting that could be used for other invasive species. We also had watercraft based mussel monitoring. And one thing that I'll note is that the 24-hour turnaround time was really fantastic. In fact, the day after the after-action report, we were en route back to Olympia when we were notified that the samples taken the previous day were negative, which was great because we didn't want to turn around at that point. We had build capacity of our state dive team, and in this they were trained and their capacity was increased. They learned the U.S. Geological Survey protocols for surveying for mussels, and they found 17 of 20 mussels, which is pretty good. The specific element of the exercise that was most difficult was deploying a containment system. And this is where we engaged private business to form a partnership where we were able to tap into industry that deploys these types of systems on a daily basis. And it was just a fantastic opportunity to not reinvent the wheel and to bring in the right tool for the right situation. We also tested a mock treatment using rhodamine dye. This was twofold in that it tested the system, the containment system, to see if it was effective, as well as to perform a mock treatment. And what was interesting is this actually united organizations internally. in that we were able to bring the Department of Fish and Wildlife Aquatic Weed Management Group along with the lake rehabilitation crew together to help advise the Aquatic Invasive Species Unit on how to do this sort of work. So this was a massive project, which is difficult to convey in 20 minutes, let alone an hour. But I invite you all to watch a 10-minute video that we produced that fully documents the operations exercise, as well as visit our website to see an interactive story map. We also have an after-action report that's detailed on the full planning process, along with next steps and lessons learned. So the bottom line is that we were successful and you can be too. And if invasive mussels, or really any invasive species, are introduced to our state, we can stop them. We know how, but it takes a whole village or a whole community, as it were. And finally, I'd just like to thank the U.S. Department of Interior Bureau of Reclamation for providing the funding for this project, as well as the 59 responders and 15 organizations from 2 countries that provided their staff and their own resources in kind as well. So with that, I'm done. Thank you all.
Thanks, Justin.